Welcome to another episode of the Way Up podcast with your host, Geoff Knoll. In today's episode, we're joined by a special guest, Theresa Stafford. Theresa's an insurance agent in the Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri area. Through her story, we'll explore how Theresa navigated unexpected shifts in her career, all while crediting her faith in God to leading her towards her true calling. Join us as we discover the profound wisdom that comes from surrendering to life's twists and turns, and learn to embrace change and how that can lead to unexpected and fulfilling paths. Get ready for an inspiring conversation as we dive into Theresa's journey of transformation and faith. Let's find out how her story can inspire us all to navigate change with grace and open hearts. The Way Up podcast is sponsored by me. I'm a real estate broker in the state of Missouri, and I believe that this message is worth my investment. Hang with us till the end. I know you won't be disappointed. Hey, I am so excited to be here with my friend Theresa Stafford. Theresa, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what you do.
All right. I'm Theresa Stafford. I am a representative with American Family Insurance in St. Robert, Missouri. I'm from Richland. I'm moved there when I was 4, so I just consider that my home. So I grew up there, went to school there, and graduated from high school there. So I've got a great village and great family there, and have been with American Family since 2009. I've been in the insurance industry for over 20 some years and was a banker before that. So they're a really good partner together.
Awesome. What did you dream of doing when you were a kid?
It wasn't insurance. That wasn't my dream. Honestly, I love to sing. I sing in my praise and worship group at my church. And so that was kind of always my dream. I kind of always thought maybe I'd be a performer, but well, that just didn't work out. So
I wanted to do that in high school too. I was in a Christian rock band. We were called the Stone Pigeons. And I had full plans. I was going to get full sleeve tattoos as soon as we signed our record label. But as you see, no sleeve tattoos. So we did not sign our record label. We did play together for about 8 years, though, till I got married and ruined everything. So.
Yeah. Marriage and babies just change everything for sure.
It does. It does. Well, especially whenever you move 10 hours away. So
yes,
that put a damper on the band.
Yeah, that kind of breaks you up. So we had a little band several years ago too, and it's just a great it's a great time of worship, and it's just a fun time. We did some performances and really enjoyed that a lot. So yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah. Well, what is something that people that know you likely don't know about you?
Well, I was an athlete in high school and played tennis and softball. I was a cheerleader, but in the summers I went to my dad's and played softball pretty much all summer. When it came to Richland, I was the catcher in high school and kind of played that. But when I went to the Boot Hill, we played slow pitch and I played shortstop. So my nickname was Ozzy. And so a lot of people in the Boot Hill area didn't even know what my name was. And my dad always called me TJ. So no one really knew what my name was. It was either TJ or Ozzy. So that was just kind of, my people around here don't really know much about that.
Yeah. Were you a little bit tomboy as a kid?
Yes. My dad wanted boys and he got 3 girls.
I was wondering what the TJ nickname, that sounds maybe a little bit. And I got a fly that is all up on me. And I'm not loving it.
It's loving you for sure.
It is. Anyhow. Okay. Well, so tell us a little bit about, your story, your life. What got you where you are today?
Well, I was in banking for 9 years and I loved banking. But at some point you just kind of get to your max that you can get to. And I've always been kind of ambitious. And so I went into the insurance industry and I worked for someone else for about 12 years. And that was a great experience. And I had super great opportunities, still lifelong friends with those people. But then I had the opportunity to start my own business and come to work for American Family in 2009. And so that's just been a great opportunity for me. I've been super blessed by having a lot of great people, teachers, family, friends that have just helped me along the way. I got divorced in 1995, so I was a single mom and branching out into being then a business owner. That is very scary because you only work on commission, and if you don't write anything, you don't get a paycheck. And so that was a little hard. You can probably understand that as a real estate person.
Yeah.
You have to kind of make your way. And so my son was a sophomore at the time that I went to work for American Family. So we sat down and he was very encouraging. He said, Mom, I can do this. I'm 16. I can get myself. And so that was a blessing. So he really, was an encourager too. And it was a good time. And I think God always puts those things in your life at the right time.
Yeah.
So if it had been earlier in my life, I don't really know that I could have done it. Just because, being a single parent doesn't always allow you the flexibility of maybe not having, as good of a paycheck as you would like to have.
Sure. How old was your son whenever you and the ex-husband decided to get divorced?
He was 2.5.
2.5. So my
Yeah.
son was 10 months old whenever my ex-wife and I separated. And so I definitely relate to the single parenting. I actually had him most of the time. He lived with me.
Mm-hmm.
He still does. He lives with me most of the time. I've got him. Sliding is crazy, but so I can definitely relate to that. Have you had a moment? And I know that I have these different times whenever I'm meditating, where I will really just feel a great appreciation for the struggle that I went through, all of the unfortunate, what felt so terrible at the time, things that happened. I wouldn't have the life that I have right now if things didn't play out the way that they did.
Yes.
And so I can look back and be like, man, I am so grateful for the struggle and the tough lessons that I had to learn. Is that something that you ever really feel you get that too?
Yeah. I had my first marriage. I had, we dated. He was a little older than me, but we dated pretty much all through my high school. So then got married at 19, and I didn't have Wade till I was almost 25. But that was my life. I didn't know anything else. You start dating somebody when you're 14, 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And but then I had kind of got out of church because he wouldn't go to church. And that's the first thing I did after he left was I went back to church. And I Know Whom I Have Believed is kind of the song that I cried to most weeks. But I do feel like that was the turning point. It's like you do feel like your life is over, but really, I feel like God was just putting a different plan together. And I did just get married 5 years ago, which has been an adjustment after being single for 20 years. But I do feel like that I would have never had the life I have now if I would have probably stayed in that relationship or been in that. And he's passed away now. But it it does open the pathway. I think sometimes, I questioned it a lot in the beginning, but it was like, okay, I made the decisions and I didn't make the decisions that God wanted me to make. And then finally he's like, okay, Theresa, I'm going to take control and this is what we're going to do. And so I feel like that very much so. And so, yeah, I feel like I'm super blessed now. I've got a great husband and I inherited 3 bonus boys. And so life is great. And yeah, I'm so thankful. And if I hadn't, you're right, if you hadn't gone through that, um, even 20 years of just raising a child, and some times were easier than other times, but you just make the decisions and you put your trust where it needs to go. And and you just move on, and you just are thankful for every single day, So it took a while. I mean, it took a while,
Yeah,
but my ex-husband and I were very good friends. And when he got sick, I very much helped take care of him and helped his family. And that was still my son's dad. So,
right. Well, I want to unpack something you said there. You said, I'm really blessed now, but looking back at that, and it always feels crappy whenever something's happening and you're going through it and it feels like the world is taking a dump on you. That's no fun. Like, it's not fun going through that, but that is the plan. That
yes,
is being blessed in that moment, even though you don't see it. It's just looking at it from a different perspective.
yes,
Easier to do that once you're on the other side of it and not in the middle of it.
yes,
When you're not in the storm and everything is falling apart, that you had your life planned of, I'm with this guy, we're going to be together forever, we're going to live this happy life, and things just aren't going that way.
no,
So yeah, it's a blessing, all of the struggles that we go through that put us into the positions that we are is a blessing. And I think that that's really huge and monumental.
yes, yeah. And you have to look, I don't believe in coincidences, and I believe God is in control of all things. And even the things that are the tough things, or what we think is a tough thing, is really just him putting that path that he wants you to be on. And sometimes you just have to surrender that and just let him take over. And so
I
that's
I love the direction you're taking this, for real. And I was going to ask you how you feel like your faith has positioned you and put you in spots where you are, in the right place at the right time, and you're rubbing elbows with the right people and you are making the right connections. You want to talk on that a little bit?
Well, I do believe that church and fellowship is a great thing. I do feel like you have to be, fellowshipping, and a lot of books, self-help books, and things that even podcasts that you listen to, a lot of that. And even our parents told us, you are the people you hang around with. And so if you're hanging around with those people who are, praising God, or have the community in mind and moving forward, that's contagious. That positivity, that excitement. If you're hanging around with those negative Nellies, that's where you're going to spend your life. I mean, that's where you're going to be. And we all have those people that have either been in our lives or are, that you try to limit that because you're like, okay, I can't handle that negative Nelly.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I do think that you just have to put yourself in that position. You have to make a mindful, that's what the chamber, that's how we kind of met. And the chamber is an opportunity. It's given me an opportunity 15 years ago to meet people I never would have met. Do I write all their insurance? No. Are they super good friends of mine? You betcha, and if they need something or I needed something, I could call dozens of them, right now. So I just feel like that's super important, to put yourself, surrounding yourself with those positivity people, and those people that, are going to lift you up and encourage you. The people that are going to rip you down and that are jealous and stuff, just let them go. And not every day is easy to do that.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, sometimes those people are the people that are close to us. They're in our family. They are,
Yes.
there are good friends that we grew up with and we spent all this time with, and they can't get their focus off of the negative. And
Right.
if they just want to stay in that state of mind that is so pessimistic and negative, it brings them down and it brings
Yeah.
everybody else around them down.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And I started going to this church, First Christian Church in Richland, when I was 8, and was super involved in church, and then got married, and my husband wouldn't go. And so, you just make the sacrifice and decide, okay, well, I'm going to try to, be a good wife and do all this. But I do feel like that is part of my journey, where I feel like that me getting away from church and away from those positive people for 7 years, 8 years, whatever it was. I do feel you said God has a plan. He has a plan, and his plan was for me to get back into church. It wasn't really the way that I wanted the plan to go, but I think sometimes he makes drastic choices for us to be like, okay, you're not doing what I want you to do. And so, yeah, I do. I feel like our faith is huge, and who we put ourselves in contact with is definitely a big part of our lives.
Absolutely. Yeah. My dad was a preacher. I grew up in church every time the doors were open, the business meetings, the everything. We were always there. And we lived in a really small town, smaller than Richland. And I couldn't do anything without my parents knowing before I got home. Like
Yeah.
that's just kind of how it was. Everybody knew everybody. Everybody knows your business. And unfortunately, when you're the preacher's kid in a small town, you've got everybody watching you. So
Yeah.
I,
Yes.
I went down a long path after I moved out of my parents' house where I was going to do my own thing. I was not determined to be there myself. Fortunately, I did have some building blocks of uh, grandparents and parents that prayed for me
Mm-hmm.
and loved me and were always encouraging me and sometimes guilting me to, you should be in church. I'm just really worried about you, son. And I get it. I do. I get it. I have and I'll be 100% transparent. I don't go to church. I feel very spiritual. I feel very connected to God,
Mm-hmm.
especially within the last year, maybe even a few. I have rekindled a connection to God.
Good.
I I haven't branched out into church or organized religion of any kind, really,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely lean heavily on my faith for decisions that I make and things that I do. You
Yes.
know, it
Well,
it guides me.
you can go to church every Sunday and not really be a spiritual person or have a depth with God. It's not just something you check off your list. You have
Right.
to be there and so I think you have to be fully invested if you make that decision. So definitely for you, you probably have a stronger faith and a relationship than maybe some of those people that are at church every single Sunday that have checked it off their box.
Well, I would say that the connection that I feel is real based on my life experience.
Mhm.
Getting out of the situation of I went to church and I would listen to all of these people come in and talk and they'd share their testimony of how they had, been into drugs and, you know, sex with random people and the craziest stuff, and I'm like, man, my story sucks. I got nothing. Like, oh, I shoplifted some candy bars from the grocery store. This is interesting.
And my dad knew about it before I got out the door.
Absolute. Well, I actually got away with it a few times, but there was the first time that I stole something, I got caught. Some candy. I think it was Rolos or gumballs or something. We were at an Alco in Kansas, and we got in the car, and I offered my parents some candy. You want some candy? Probably 4 years old, and they're like, "Where'd you get that?" I got it at the store. We didn't pay for that. So
Oh.
my dad turned around, drove back. We went in. I had to apologize. He bought it. He paid for it because I had already opened it. And then they ate the candy in front of me and didn't give me any.
If you didn't get any?
I didn't get any. No, no. It's a lesson. It makes sense. You don't want to
Yes.
reward that behavior.
No, no, you don't. But it also taught you that the next time you're not going to offer them any candy.
Yeah, I'm not sharing with you. You guys take it away. That was hateful. I thought I didn't like that.
Yeah.
But you know, a lot of people don't enjoy being corrected whenever you make a mistake.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be pleasant. It's supposed to be memorable so that you don't repeat the same thing over and over again. And as a parent, that's something that I've struggled with that. Single parenting. I don't know if you can relate to this, but I definitely parented out of guilt, just feeling bad for my son that he didn't get to grow up in the house with his two parents together. So
Yeah.
I was very easy pushover, let him by with a lot of things that did him no favors.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like at 14, where he's at right now, we're having to correct things that were mistakes that I made as a parent,
Mm-hmm.
just because I thought that it was the best thing to, I wanted to give him the things that I didn't have, because I grew up in a preacher's home in a small town. That's not
Yeah.
a big budget. Our back to school shopping was at the thrift store. So, I remember when we moved to Missouri, the first church the only church in Missouri my dad pastored was Adrian. And the first Christmas we were there, they gave us Christmas gifts, which I'd
Oh,
never gotten Christmas gifts from my church before. And just because we were the preacher's family, and
oh,
I got my very first pair of Nike tennis shoes,
oh,
and I was blown away. I'd never had name brand anything unless it came from the thrift store
yeah.
and was well used. So I was like ecstatic. I'm like, man, these people are rich or something, like giving me Nikes. This is crazy. But yeah, I mean, I think everything happens for a reason. 100% agree with you. I
Yeah.
don't believe in coincidence. I believe that God definitely directs our steps,
Yes.
lines up our interactions with people, and just being aware of the situation that you're in and the opportunities that you have is
Yes.
is really important.
Yes. And I think you make different decisions as a single parent after I got divorced and, I got back into church. You know, finding a partner that wanted to go to church because they wanted to go to church, not because it was my requirement on my checklist that I had, which over the years it changed a little bit. I think I was a little picky in the beginning, but so it does. And looking back now on my journey in the last 8 years, I've only been married 5 years, but we dated for about 8 years or 3 years before that. But that's the person I had been praying for, the whole time. And you pray and pray and pray. And it's nice to have somebody now who has, he feels bad if he's not in church, and that's where we're going to have a good solid foundation. So I do feel like, and we study together and we do Bible studies. And, I think you have to find that person that, you grew up seeing that with your parents, with
Mhm.
the preacher and the preacher's wife, and
Yeah.
and so it is a little bit different. I think as you get older and what you look for in a future spouse is a lot different than when I was 19 and got married the first time.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you bring up the preacher and the preacher's wife. So I want to dispel a misconception, I believe, maybe. So my mother loved my mother, and she passed away in 2014. She was sweet. I would never say anything negative about her, but I can tell real stories.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, she would get so mad, because I mean, we were Yahoo children. I have a sister who's also a Yahoo, and between the two of us, we could get her good and mad, and she would be screaming at us. The phone would ring, go from screaming to silence, pick up the phone. No residence. God bless you. It's like, what? Who is this? You're lying to people, I think. Like, this is not okay, I don't think. But, interesting. Just in case you don't know, that's what the preacher's wife does.
Yeah. Well, I think probably we all do that. I mean, there were times when my son and I, we would be having it out in the car all the way to church, and we get to church, we get out, and it's like, blah, blah, blah. You're just happy go lucky. So I think we all do that.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
it's got to be more normal. I've got to flip the switch, to be honest. I've got to flip the switch too. Sometimes my son will have me good and hot and
yeah,
be getting, and then my phone will ring, and you can't answer the phone that way. So
no,
it's not how you want to.
you're probably not going to sell a house like that.
Probably not going to sell a house to that person.
Yeah.
So anyhow, I think I know where this is. I think I know the direction you're going to take it, but what is something that you could say if you were to look back over your life and you could identify something that has really positioned you to be successful in your life, in your career? What is something that you can say, this has definitely given me an edge, an advantage?
I truly think the people in my life have. I mean, again, I had opportunities. I went to SEMO for a few months, got sick, came home, never went back, got married, blah, blah, blah. I was so fortunate to have teachers in my life that believed in me. Growing up in the church, having people that watched me grow up that believed in me and gave me the references I needed and put me in contact with people that, hey, there's a job at Commerce Bank. I think you'd be really good at it or whatever, and then going into the insurance. I do think your village that you're around truly, and a lot of my village was my church and my being in a small town, my teachers, my family. I do really feel like having those opportunities, and the Christy Robertson was the American Family Agent in Richland, and I had known her for years. And she just kept saying, I really think you'd be good. I really think you would be good. And just that encouragement that you get from other people, because sometimes we don't think that we can do things. And I think God just puts those people in your lives at the right time to be like, hey, you can do this. And so I just think the people, and I think again, the people that you surround yourself have to be those good, positive, encouraging people. And if not, I wouldn't be here. If I didn't have a great support system that helped me with my son, for all of those years, my family, I mean, I couldn't do it. It's a village for sure. And yeah, it has to be the people and just your church and your family, and it's all community.
Yeah. So since you had those people in your life, have you felt compelled to, be on the lookout for those people that are in need of that? I know that I had people that have helped me out along the way, and especially when I felt like I didn't deserve anything, nobody owed me anything, but I had people that just kind of went out of their way to be good to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I always felt like apprehensive of even accepting any kind of assistance or help from people like that, but very appreciative.
Yeah.
I just, my pride didn't want to do that. But the people that were encouraging because of that, are you constantly looking for people that are in that and hey, you know what, you were really good in this area. I try to point out if I see something that I think somebody's has a strength in, I try to go out of my way. My mom did a really good job of building everybody up around her. When she
Mm-hmm.
passed away in 2014, I thought long and hard about how I wanted to keep her alive in me.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided that I wanted to take that attribute, that character of hers, of building people up around her, and I wanted to do that. So I look for people that I'm like, man, I think you're good at this, and I would give them some different ideas, and whether they do anything with it or not, most of the time people don't, but you can see it in their eyes when they're like, really,
Mm-hmm.
you see something in me that I don't see in me.
Yes. And I think that you're right. And I think because being single parents and having that outside people just encouraging us, I do feel like I kind of do that a lot. I am very old school. I still love to send a card. And sometimes you see somebody or you run across somebody, and I was diagnosed with cancer a couple of years ago, and I'm amazed. I ran across my cards the other day. I mean, I have a stack probably this tall of people that just randomly would just send me a card that says, "Hey, I thought of you today. I prayed for you today." And I've done that for many years because I just feel like sometimes we need to give those people those encouragement. And yes, I do. If there's somebody contacted me yesterday and they're like, "Hey, we've got this position open. Do you know of anybody?" I feel like somebody gave me that opportunity many years ago. And so, yes, I do very much. I think we are networkers. We're trying to put people together all of the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think that's a bad thing.
No.
And so, yes, I do. I'm constantly, like this person contacted me, and it's like, okay, my brain's going, okay, who needs a job? Who's not happy with their job? Who would be really good at this job? But also like the cards. I just love being able to send a card that just says, "Hey, I thought of you today," or "I prayed for you today," or here's a virtual hug. It doesn't have to be anything long and whatever. I don't know. I just think it's pretty fun.
Yeah. Can you give me an example of a time where you felt overwhelmed, discouraged, and you just wanted to give up, and then what it was that helped you get through that?
Well, taking over a new job was, taking over the agency was very difficult because of the way the company, you couldn't really be an agent until you went through their training, which I couldn't go through for a while. And so it was a very different for me. And because I had always been an employee and now I'm the boss and I have people who work for me and I have staff and I have to get my stuff done and I got to make sure my staff is done and I got to keep them busy. And it was very discouraging the first few months. I mean, I love insurance, I love selling, I love people, but the business side of it is very different for me because that's not my love. And so it was a little bit, and I started in January, and then in March, then I had to start training for 8 weeks, and I had to go to St. Joe to do that. So I had to leave my son at home, which again, he was a sophomore, so he was 15, 16 years old. So I guess he was 16 by the time I went. So I mean, I didn't have that, but it hurts your mama's heart, because it's like, okay, I've got to leave you for 8 weeks. I mean, I would come home on the weekends and stuff, but sometimes then he'd go to his dad's and I wouldn't get to see him. So that was a little bit of a struggle for me. At some point, I'm like, okay, is this really worth it? But then a couple of things I feel like I wouldn't have had the opportunity if it wasn't worth it. And he was a sophomore. He was going to be graduating in 2 years, which goes super fast. And then he went to college in Wyoming, and he's on his own. He's 30 years old now, and so had I have given up on that opportunity, he's 30 now. He doesn't need his mama. He really didn't need me for more than just a couple, 3 years. And so I think sometimes we get very distracted with um, sometimes the best things in life are super hard. And that was a hard time for me. It was a very hard time to balance everything, be a mom, work, have employees, figure out a budget. How am I going to pay the rent? How am I going to do this? I mean, that part of it was super, it was a little bit of a struggle for me.
I apologize. Sorry about that.
Excuse you? It's that fly.
Man, that thing's been just after me. It still
Well, it
is.
must be the same one we had yesterday because Tyler was just like, he was after it. He was on a mad dash. We have fly swatters in here, which you need to stop and get one. And so he was just flipping around all over yesterday. So this may be a cousin or something over there.
Could be. He's pretty hateful, and I'm not a fan. So one last thought for the listeners. If you could give someone that is, we'll just say, give your 20-year-old self some advice with what you've learned now, all the experiences that you've had in life. If you could go back and talk to your 20-year-old self, what would you tell yourself?
I would tell myself that I deserve everything that you work very hard for. Nothing comes easy in life. Um, and I would tell myself that, you have to choose your family, doing the right thing. There's a book that I love. It's called The Best Yes by Lisa Turkhurst. And she's talking about making the best yes in your life. A lot of times we hate to tell people no, but it's like when people are asking you to do something, it's because they don't want to do it. So why should you feel bad about that? And so I feel like in my 20s, I maybe did a lot of things that I didn't really want to do. It wasn't my best yes. It wasn't the best things that I wanted to do. And I am very much of a people pleaser, so I do struggle with that a lot, telling people no. But I think just telling myself back then that, you know, I didn't have any kids then. I was like, I had no idea the joy that was going to be, or the struggle that was going to be. But really, just I'm worth it. I'm worth, anything I work hard for. It's not anything that's given to us, and I think God puts that all in our plan and in our walk, and we don't have to feel bad if we if something happens. I felt horrible when I got a divorce. I was raised in church. You didn't get a divorce, and I struggled with that a lot.
I
And
did
that was
too.
that was 20. I was 27 when that happened, but still, yet telling my 27-year-old self that this is the best thing that, for both of us. We just weren't meant to be together. It was the best thing for both of us. It was the best thing for our son. Telling yourself and allowing yourself to really just be happy with your successes,
Yeah.
and you deserve it, and um, allow God to work. He opens doors sometimes that we can't even imagine. I mean, after 20 years I got married, I was like, oh wow. So
Yeah. No, I felt like a major failure whenever I got a divorce. And I think a lot of it is just the way that I was raised.
mhm.
And you would probably disagree with this. I'm going to go out on a limb before I even say it. You're not going to agree with this. I felt like because I was so much programmed to, you're not supposed to have sex before you're married. And I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. I think living together was, I feel like it's really hard to get married and expect that you're going to move in with this person and everything's going to be great whenever you've never lived with somebody.
Mhm.
How many times have you had a roommate? I don't know if you've ever had a roommate that wasn't somebody you're dating or something, or a husband, but this is really hard to combine two very different people. So
Yeah.
I was like, man, this is crazy. But I felt like a super failure whenever I got divorced.
Yeah, boy.